So that collection of images that you guys just saw are some of my personal favorites from my recent trip to China, where I just completed a photo project that I'd been planning for months now called the Black and White Country Project, where I tried to highlight the differences and contrast between the old and new China. I also wanted to compare the people to an ever-changing environment. So the country has undergone such a transformation within the last 4 decades, but I wanted to highlight not just the old and new architecture, for example. I also wanted to highlight some of the interactions that the people that live there have living in that environment that has changed so much within the last 4 decades. So a few of the things I want to go over in this video. I want to go over why this project was important for me, what it did for my photography, and what I learned from it. And I also want to talk about how you, as a photographer or someone who is feeling lost in their photography or with themselves or with the direction that they're taking with their work, how they can learn new ways of seeing things by implementing the idea of a photo project, because this did a lot for me, so I think it can do a lot for you too. So a little bit about me, just to introduce myself a bit. My name is Nicholas. I've been a so-called photographer for 6 years now. I've been dealing with photography on and off for around 6 years. Funnily enough, I started during the pandemic, which was probably the worst time to begin because I couldn't even leave the house. But yeah, I got my first camera when I was at home and decided, okay, I'm gonna start trying something new, because a friend of mine at the time had been dealing with photography for around a year or so. I'd been taking photos on my phone of my local town. I'm actually from Cyprus, so I grew up in a small town called Larnaca, which is now more of a city, but anyway. And I was taking photos just going around Larnaca on my phone, and I decided photography might actually be the best thing to get into as a hobby, because I've been doing music before that. But I wanted to elevate myself, at least when it came to this project, because I had been falling into the trap that I think a lot of photographers fall into, at least street photographers fall into, where you kind of get to a point where all you do is just shoot and that's all you think. You don't even really think. You don't take the time to compose, you don't really take the time to stay back, analyze your surroundings, and actually compose a shot. Sometimes you just spray and pray and hope for the best. For almost 2 to 3 years, a lot of my process just came to spraying and praying. So I go to events and I go to protests or something. I live in Greece now, so there's a lot of frequent protests here, but I would just go out and basically just shoot anything that I thought looked cool. And you know, even if I capture a few moments that are pretty big and are really visually appealing, I still felt in the back of my mind that I wasn't pushing my creative vision as far as I wanted to. The only thing I was doing was just shooting and getting a few good shots, and like every 100 I get 1 or 2 good shots, and I'd be like, oh, okay, you know, those look good, I can put them on my Instagram, but they're not really something that you curated in your mind. So I wanted to push myself when it came to something like that, and actually slow down and think, what do I want to shoot? Do I want to look here? Do I want to look there? Does the lighting look different there? Does the composition look there? Is there someone interesting? Is there an interesting subject that can interact with the light or interact with another subject? I wanted to think about these things by having one goal in mind, and that one goal was to compare old versus new and implement the idea of the people in that environment. So that's what I wanted to do. So a little bit about why I chose this topic. I chose this topic because I went to China last year to visit my friend who was into photography, and he took me around his hometown of Suzhou for a few days, and it really stood out to me when I was in Shanghai, because I was in Shanghai for the first and last day of my trip, that you have the monumental buildings, you have the skylines, you have everything, you have the Bund and all that, but if you go just a little bit, you turn down one corner or one of the back streets, you suddenly see complexes of people that are living a very different life to the busy city-goers, for example. You see people that are living in these apartment blocks like this, like kind of communistical, but not really. They look more traditional in the sense, and it's very tight going through there, and you see these houses that are very compressed, and people are living a way simpler, but I don't want to say poorer, it's not necessarily poorer, but it is a little more dumbed down. It's not so modern as you would think about it. And these people are living in these small complexes, and there's many of these different kinds of complexes, especially in Shanghai and in Beijing, and you see them and they're so different from the skyline that you would associate in your mind as being Shanghai, because that's what it is now. And that really stood out to me last year, and I wanted to do something with that because I really enjoyed my trip last year to China, and I had the opportunity to go on an exchange program this summer, to Nanjing. So when I was in Shanghai, because I landed in Shanghai first, and then spent 2 weeks in Nanjing, and then another week in Chongqing, I wanted to highlight these differences as I saw them. Now, my trip was only 26 days. I know that isn't enough to complete an entire photo project. It's not something that I spent so much time doing, but I wanted to give myself a goal. I had a limited time frame, and I think even having a limited time frame was better for me in the end, because I got to really try to get whatever I could in this amount of time that I had, this very small amount of time. 26 days just goes by like that. It's to push myself into getting into this first long-term project so that I can have the credibility in my mind to be like, oh, okay, what other projects can I do? What other things can I push myself for? Or push myself to do. This leaves me with the last thing that I want to talk about, is how can it help you? Because here's me talking about it, but if it doesn't help you, then it's not worth watching, or you're not gaining anything from it. So the things I learned are things that I believe in that every photographer goes through. At least finding your style is one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing that a photographer goes through. And I still don't believe I found my style fully. I focus a lot on humanist work, so on people, and comparing them to their environments, so that was something I wanted to focus on, especially for this project. But it's taken me a long time to get there. I mean, 6 years I was doing car stuff, a bit of products here and there, but it wasn't really something that I had. It was just random. Anything I saw, okay, it looked nice. But doing a photo project helps you understand yourself better when it comes to understanding what you are drawn to. What I would say is maybe decide in your head what kind of things, for example, if you are on Pinterest, because I used Pinterest a lot for this project, I curated a board in which I got inspiration from, and I said, okay, now I can see where my style is going to, and now I see what my interests are. Perhaps go on Pinterest, go and see, look up a few types of photography or something that you've been dealing with already, curate a board, and try to see, if I create a project, what very specific thing would it focus on? Perhaps ask yourself, what wouldn't you focus on? And if you wouldn't focus on that, then I think you already have your answer. Another thing I would say that is very crucial that the photo project has taught me that can teach you is how to stick with something long term. As I said, even 26 days is not a long time, but going through the process, the execution, or coming up with the planning and deciding where I'm going to go before I even go to the country, or what I'm going to do here, what I'm going to do there, how I'm going to structure it, how I'm going to advertise it, how I'm going to show people. This is something that requires grit, and it's something that requires you to think about and to be, okay, even if it fails, I still did it. I still managed to stick with something and to create a body of work that I'm proud of. Because for me, that was my goal, was to create a body of work that matched what I had in my head, or at least got as close as it possibly could to something in my head that I had here, or to at least be proud that I could actually handle something like this. Because a lot of people, I think, doubt themselves, because I've always doubted myself, but a lot of people doubt themselves when it comes to, yeah, but those guys did this and those guys did that and they had this gear and they had that gear. I, for example, have been using the same camera for 6 years. The one I'm recording on right now, which is the Sony a6400. It's a great camera, but it's dying on me. It is, the battery dies super quick, the screen that I have on it barely works anymore, keeps turning off all the time. My viewfinder turns off mid-shoot, so I might be about to shoot a picture and the viewfinder just turns off, or the camera just turns off. So I had to go with this in mind, that I'm gonna struggle getting these shots, and you're gonna struggle as well getting these shots, but that's the point. You're going to push yourself in order to get these things that you want, or in order to get the shots that you want. And a photo project is, in my opinion, the best way to do that, because you stick with something long term, or however long you want it to be. Around a month is good. Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe 2 weeks is a little bit little, but around a month is a good amount of time for you to see something for a long period of time and to try different things. Because there were many times where I was shooting and I thought, I'm kind of steering off the path, but I'm enjoying it as well. I'm not exactly shooting the goal I had in mind of comparing and contrasting old ways of life and new ways of life with the people that live in them. More architecture in some cases, or long exposure shots that I didn't think I would necessarily go for when I was planning the project. So yeah, in the end, I would say that. I'd say that definitely you should try and do a photo project if you're feeling lost as a photographer. You should try to stick to something a bit long term, and I think that doing this will give you more grit, will give you more power, self-determination to make quick decisions, because there will be times where you decide, this is better than something else, or it will allow you to feel more clarity when it comes to making decisions as a photographer. So that was all I had to say, guys. I wanted to make this video to highlight my project, to inform you guys on what you can learn from it, what I learned from it, and there are many more videos to come, so stay tuned.